Don't get too cocky, my boy, no matter how good you are. Don't ever let them see you coming. That's the gaff, my friend. You got to keep yourself small.
All right, we've got free agency, followed by the draft. There's the we're doomed, and then there's we're just rebuilding. I think a lot of people are away from the hype factor 5 for the Dolphins this season. I think a lot of people kind of in the middle, maybe leaning towards the doomed. I've been talking about doomed for a while. I don't think we're doomed. I think there's opportunities, but it's going to take a masterclass of an offseason and luck to right this ship, because what we're in right now is a regime reclamation project. Chris Grier, maybe he's got 1 year left. McDaniel, maybe he's got 1 year left. Maybe they got 2, maybe they got more. We don't know what's going on. But clearly they've got to show some kind of salvaging of this situation. It can't be worse than last year. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done to fix or adjust some of the gross failures that we've seen so far and get this thing to a position where the optics aren't so bad that they can try again the following season. Whether you like that or not, that's up to you. But I think that's the main goal. And so I'm going to get into the free agency today, focusing on the offensive line, because I do think that's where Chris Grier is going to put the largest portion of his offseason points or components into, and that's going to be the offensive line. I think that he's going to look to solidify and fortify this interior and this offensive line in free agency. But it's not going to be huge expenditures. But still, good work can get done.
Why do you bring fools to judge my work?
Okay, so let's get to the plays that are available and the pros and cons and who might be the guys we're targeting, who the guys I think we should be targeting. Now, we have to remember, tackle, Jackson's coming off another injury. He's not good. He's overpriced. If we want to move off him, it's only like 6 million saved, 7 million lost. I don't see it. But is he going to be ready? Is he going to stay healthy? So tackle could be a position, but again, the money's tight.
What do you mean, no? I haven't got time. Well, give it back then. No, I just paid you. What? Yeah. This bloke won't haggle.
Won't haggle?
And so this is why a guy like Staley, who played for the Ravens, he had about $8 million contract. He's 31 years old. He ran lots of high gap. They run higher gap than us, 40 and 50% sometimes. And he would be a great addition for us. But the money, and then to take that money and to put it where Jackson or Paul would be, we might not be able to afford that. And Jackson, in my opinion, can't play inside. Makari, a guard, not so hot on gap. 6'4", 305, a little bit smaller, good player. He can kind of play the tackle and the guard. I like that, but I have a feeling he's going to be expensive and maybe too much for us because we really have to kind of look at that 6 to 7 million range for a guard, and then maybe that 3 to 4 million range for another guard. Becton, too big. He only had paid $3 million last year, but he doesn't fit what we do. Drive blocking, just pure zone. We're not seeing him. Will Freeze is a guy a lot of people like. He's had loads of injuries. He's moved around, and that's kind of limited him some along with the injuries. He had a phenomenal year last year. This year he had another injury, only one full season. Can we really bet the bank on him? He does have potential. He's a guy who could help us if healthy. But because we're so tight, injuries and health is going to be a major component to whether we sink or swim. And I don't know if that's with his price tag, which it might be decent, Grier should or would bet on him. Then Tavon Jenkins, I love him a ton. He's been injured a lot, but he's like a Tehran. He's played 3/4 of his seasons. He's played balanced zone and gap running, and he is very good in a bubble. I'd love to get him, but he's played all over the place. He's been mostly healthy. He's young. I expect his contract to be way out of our range, although in a bubble, I'd love to have him. Kappa from the Bengals. No, this guy has Eichenberg in him. He can't handle power. He had 8 sacks and 51 pressures last year. Now, the Bengals throw fast, but not like us. And that's the thing to remember, too. We're going to continue to throw fast and run this outside zone and run these gaps. Maybe tail it a little bit. So if a guy's not so great at pass blocking because we throw so fast, it might boost them enough, but it's got to be commensurate of the price. And I think he's 30 years old. But I don't like him. Hernandez, he's run tons of gap, but he's been mad at it. He's 6'2", 332, has a little Jones in him. I don't see that as a guy. Reisner, he had 1 sack and 21 pressures and limited duties. He's had injuries. He's a bit of a pariah. He banged heads with Barry. I don't see him either. Moore Jr., he's had lots of snaps. You want a guy who's healthy? He's a guy who's healthy. Now, he gave up 12 sacks and 41 pressures, but that was in an offense that really had the clock rising high. And at least Moore is not who I want, but he has the health, and his failings could be mitigated. Not who I want, but a possibility. Cleveland, he's very good in gap, but he's got a low snap count, very low snap count. He's 6'6", 370. He's not moving for us. That's not a guy for us either. Now, these are the last couple of guys that I think we should target. And I think they have to be the targets. Now, a lot of people talking about Sheriff. He was once a phenomenal guard. He's 33 years old. He was once really good in gap, but if you look at his gap production, it's gone down. He's gotten older and slower. He only gave up 1 sack and 15 pressures. He's a guy we would like to have on his team because he could drive guys out and be that leader. You need a leader on this offensive line because it's still very young, even with Brewer. He's balanced his zone gap, but his gap is kind of sunk. He's not what he used to be. But again, for us, he could be a guy, and he's been healthy for 3 seasons, but he's 33 years old. But I do think he's a guy who might have a reasonable contract, and he could be good for us. He'd be way better than Jones, way better than Eichenberg.
To infinity and beyond.
And so while I don't like the age, he's not a perfect fit. He would be a massive upgrade. Because if you put him between Jackson and Brewer, just imagine the tying. Or you put him between Brewer and Paul to help Paul, it'd be a great tying down of some young guys. Because Brewer can't do it all on his own, and Jackson's not that kind of guy. I'm still not certain about he's the guy because of the age. But for the right price, for a year stopgap, he could be. Then Daniels with Pittsburgh and Chicago. He fits us really well. He's kind of young at 27, pretty young at 27, but he's coming off an ACL injury. He's had 3 healthy seasons before that. He's better at zone than gap. He works well at getting to the second level, but his production, and I don't know exactly why, it's kind of sunk a little bit in his gap play. And he's coming off an ACL, and it's going to take time to get him in here, and it's going to take time for him to get to the point where he can start covering lots of distance. But has the ACL sucked down because he's a big dude? He's like 6'4", 330. Is the mobility going to be restricted a little bit more? Now, if we move to more zone and less gap, then maybe that doesn't play out. He clearly would help us a ton. Huge upgrade over Jones or Eichenberg. What's his price tag? What is he commanding? He was paid almost $9 million last year. Is the value gone down? I don't know. And then there's Banks. To me, Banks, it's hard because Daniels and Banks both had loads of injuries. But Banks understands what we like to do. He comes from the Shanahan system. He's 27. He had 1 sack, 19 pressures, and limited duty. He's worked well in zone and gap. His run blocking is not the best. But he is, again, an upgrade of what we had. But he's had 2 MCL injuries 2 years in a row and a broken pinky. And so really, if you balance out the injury thing, it's a little more concerning with Banks than it is Daniels. Daniels is coming off a more serious injury, but it looks like maybe his body's breaking down. Banks, that is. And so when you really lay this out, the safest bet might be Sheriff, because he is going to be cheaper because he's 34 years old. You might get him for that $5 million, $6 million range, where Banks and Daniels, they're younger and teams might want to take that chance because you have a few more years left on him. But can the Dolphins, who have to come out hot, who can't, because they're so tight, risk an injury, maybe Sheriff is the guy. And then maybe somebody else on a cheaper level to fill that out. And then you go find your guard in the draft. Now, all this kind of comes down to, what's the market like? Where's the market going? Clearly, offensive linemen are going up. Interior offensive linemen are going up. A lot of people told me I was crazy when I said sign Hunt and Wilkins in the 2022 draft. But I had seen that the offensive cycle was going towards this, and this A and B gap was becoming more critical. We could have signed both of them very cheap. Sorry, my daughter walked in on me. But then we have to see, what is this market going to do to take guys that are not so good and raise them a little bit higher, because we're so tight. It will be very, very interesting. So just overall, if you look at the prices, Ben Powers is making $3 million. Daniels, like I said, 8.8. Austin Jackson is making 12. Morgan Moses, 5. Moses and Sheriff could be in that same range, 5, which is manageable. Shaq Mason, who hasn't been as good as he used to be, but the Texans are paying him 11.6. Will Hernandez, 4.5. So there is, and if you look at Simpson, who, again, Al from 3 yards per carry nailed, and he had a great season, he's making 6. So you're looking at a sizable commitment to one of these guards. And I think Daniels and Bangs could be close to that 10 million range. It's going to be a little bit tough for us to swallow. Again, it might mean, unless there's some kind of discount, Sheriff might be the guy for us. So that's the whole deal. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope I gave you the information. I'm going to break it up for you so you can look through the different, but we got a lot of stuff to fill. And we've got to see what the market says. We've got to see how many people are chasing offensive linemen and how the bidding process goes. We need to fill out a lot of spots, but this offensive line is a big deal. How we control the A and B gap, how we run inside, how we run in the red zone is going to be a huge determinant, as I've said, since 2021 on the success of this team. So we've got to do this right. We have some options, and we'll see what it goes down. So anyway, Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with acewed.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.